This evening, we're gathered as a committee of the whole village board, and we will call this committee meeting to order. And we'll have our village administrator, Rob Pisha, take the roll. John Clavio is here. There he is.
There he is. All right, Mayor Holland.
Here.
Trustee Clavio.
Here.
Trustee Farina.
Here.
Trustee Ogle.
Here.
Trustee Petro.
Here.
Currently, Trustee Borelli is absent and Clerk Freire is absent as well.
Hey, by the way, Rob, I'm here.
Oh, sorry. Trustee Savaria.
Here.
Sorry about that.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting that took place on May 28th.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Trustee Ogle and a second by Trustee Petro. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Then that passes. We're here to talk about two issues this evening and to discuss them and then make a decision regarding them. They're both very related. One has to do with closing public property, namely a public street, Kansas Street, to allow expanded outdoor dining. The other has to do with closing, well, just allowing outdoor expanded dining on various private properties, frankly, all over town. We've had a number of restaurants take part in this activity. It was at a land use and policy committee meeting that we came to consensus that this was something we should try, that it's something we could do to help businesses in our community during this COVID-19 situation. And the governor stated that in phase 3 of his plan, restaurants could open for outdoor dining. At the time, we said that when phase 4 comes, we would end the practice. And that was our decision as early as, I don't know, must have been 4 to 6 weeks ago. It wasn't very long ago when we first agreed to do this. And there's potential that we will be in phase 4 as early as a week from this coming Friday. So I think what happened since then is there have been a number of things said about the outdoor dining. Some have liked it, some I suppose have not. But we thought we should revisit that particular part of the decision. Should this end when phase 4 comes, or should we continue at least for some additional length of time? And if we do continue, we need to decide on a date or some other way to decide when it ends. It is temporary in nature. And so that's where we are. And that's the purpose of the meeting tonight. And I thought it appropriate to have a committee of the whole meeting to discuss the issue. So with that, I guess we'll go to our staff. We'll go to our administrator, Rob Pisha, to see if there's anything more we need to talk about here or describe.
I just wanted to, I did send out an email to the board. We did get some results. We sent out a survey both via email and hand delivered to the downtown businesses, especially that have been affected by the Kansas Street closure. We did get 27 responses back from various individuals. You did get the results of that survey, and overall, I believe that it was the responses were either positive or neutral. There was actually only one comment that was negative. And as far as other issues, I mean, there were some issues that some business people brought up about parking enforcement, and I think things that were specific to some of the changes. But overall, it appeared that the people who did respond were either in favor or neutral when it came to the Kansas Street closure, and were basically positive for the extension of the time for the other restaurants to continue to have the expanded outdoor seating and dining. Just want to make sure that also that, you know, we talk about that we want to continue with the rules that we have put into place, specifically, you know, when it comes to the alcohol and the outside entertainment, but we can talk about that after the other discussion.
I think that's appropriate for other business, but it certainly is related, and there's nothing wrong with talking about it in the discussion of these things if we want to change some of our rules. That yes, it could continue if we do this differently. That would certainly be appropriate. Did everybody get, I received 2 more comments late this afternoon or later this afternoon. One was from Bill and Nancy Hardy. Did everybody see that? Okay, as long as you saw that. And then another one from Deborah Hardwick that I'm not sure you had, Rob, in your tally, because it came this afternoon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that is included in the tally.
Oh, it is. Okay,
Yes.
fine. Okay, well, with that, who wants to begin? Any comments? Any questions?
Okay. Yeah.
Trustee Farina.
Thanks, Mayor Helen, and thanks for the review. Certainly, we've heard a lot of positive feedback about the closing of Kansas Street. I think people have enjoyed the opportunity to get back out in the street and so forth. It's been a different type of experience. And there's been, you know, a lot of people, even online, I've seen have pictured themselves on there and so forth, and stating that they'd like to see this permanent, not just for the summer of 2020, but just in general for our town. So I'd like to share that I do think we should, as I shared in our last committee of the whole meeting, take this through a committee process where our Plan Commission and our Historic Preservation Commission can consider this option and have us move forward with a different look and feel. Also, I think in regards to public safety and alcohol consumption, sitting and being served versus standing room, that should also be discussed probably more so with our police and how we handle that. Parking, I have heard from Ash Street businesses, they're very concerned about it. So that's another issue. And these are all issues we know that through Plan Commission and other community processes that would be discussed, and it could be an open forum for our residents and our businesses to partake in. I have found that not only here nationally, but even internationally, like places like Milan and Athens, they've done some neat things where they've taken city streets and they've actually shut them down and made them bicycle pedestrian friendly and extended sidewalks to allow for social distancing. Other places like the capital Lithuania, they just shut down their town square, and they were planning that all along, but they bumped it up a year because of coronavirus. And then they changed the street direction, so it's looping. And I know before the pandemic, we talked about Oak Street and changing that direction as well. And again, that's something our traffic committee could probably digest and consider with regards to the whole picture. Even in San Francisco, in Rotterdam, they have closed various streets for retail to be able to utilize parking spots or sidewalks and so forth. So retail establishments also get an opportunity for sales and so forth. So I'm open to this, but I think for the short-term and long-term opportunity in Frankfort, and even I know there's been discussion about possible music, and maybe that's something later on after COVID-19 we'd want to do, so we don't have any large gatherings at this time. Let's just take it through a committee process and allow for our committees to explore this and residents and businesses to have feedback and do it the right way.
Margaret, I think you're being specific to Kansas Street.
Correct.
Yes, so good. We'll talk about Kansas Street first. And I think what you're saying is it might be best if this ended with phase 4 and we go through a process and look at it for sometime in the future.
Yeah, and I think even immediately we can have some discussions through committee of what we'd like to see if we're going to keep it open through phase 4. I think there's been some challenges with accessibility. I also think, you know, there's been an unclear, or businesses have been unclear what we meant by serving on the streets. So if we would have clearer guidelines too stated, I think that would be more helpful for businesses. I think that's important and something we can go through committee and have that discussion with. And new guidelines, perhaps. I also think I should say too, because we know we've had a garbage issue, that perhaps we also want to look at our fines. And I think one business was fined $750. Maybe we want to increase that to $1,000 or $1,500 if we're going to have issues and so forth.
Oh, that'd be a nice idea, but we're limited to $750. But we can do it every day, I think. So,
very well.
If I'm not mistaken, John or Rob can correct me there. But
Have we seen an issue with the garbage since they addressed it the first time, or?
Not to my knowledge, Gene. I did inspect the garbage on Sunday late afternoon. I was climbing around the dumpster area and it all looked in order to me. There was plenty of room. Jeff.
Mr. Mayor and the rest of the committee members, just want to let you know that Trustee Borelli did join by phone a few minutes ago. So I'm going to allow his microphone to be on, but I didn't think you could see on your screen. So I wanted to let you know he is with us this evening.
Good. Who's next? Trustee Severia.
Yeah, so my opinion on this, and Trustee Farina, I agree with you. I think we should be looking at doing this long-term. And I think that as far as what we do long-term, we should probably, you know, bring it to committee and have a discussion about that. But I think with regards to keeping it open during phase 4, I think there's a couple of things. I think that the response from the community has been overall positive. And the other piece of that is that with social distancing, once the restaurants go back inside, I think it's going to limit how many people that they can have in there. And then keeping this open to the outside allows them to, you know, have more capacity as far as customers are concerned. I think given the hit that they took early on with COVID, I think, you know, we need to continue to support our businesses and the restaurants. So I would be all for keeping it open through phase 4.
Thanks, Gene. Trustee Petro.
So I would agree, and Trustee Farina, I would support, you know, going through the full process for something longer term. I think what we're looking at right now is just what we discussed when we put these policies in place, is a short-term solution that not only, to your point, Trustee Svaria, allows for the businesses to operate, but it's also something for residents. And this is what our residents come to expect, and visitors to Frankfort is the opportunity to go out and dine and shop in our downtown area and or our other businesses on the private lots. And I certainly think there are going to be restrictions, spacing between the tables inside, and this will allow some additional capacity. So I would be in favor of keeping that open through phase 4, and anything longer term would need to go through the full approval process for any longer term solution or permanent solution. 100% would agree with that. I know there's been some discussion around music and or the, you know, allowing additional opportunities for that. And I think we would just need to be conscientious of, you know, the public support that we've gotten for it. And to your point, we don't want to encourage, you know, standing around social, you know, gatherings that would be too large outside of phase 4, but we do want to allow for that, I guess, just the atmosphere that we're all used to for like a dining atmosphere. And so that would be my opinion on it.
Trustee Ogle, did you have something?
Yes, Mayor, I did. Phase 4, our businesses will still be disadvantaged by capacity. And so I think moving forward, we should continue to keep this open. This again was a temporary situation until they're able to bring everybody inside. And this has also been very refreshing for our residents and our guests of town. This has been a big relief for them, and it's been very popular, and I think it's important for us to continue that. As far as some of the discussions we've had over the last couple of years, which Trustee Farina has kind of brought forward, once we get past October, which is really the functional outdoor space that we can use in Northern Illinois, we have time to bring all these ideas for review by committee and discussion by the village board. And I think that we should. There's been a lot of input from residents that they would like to see this either permanent or on some other basis where we can work out some of those details. And yes, we should try to improve the aesthetic. We didn't have much time to put this together. Neither did the restaurants or anyone. This was thrown on us very quickly, and we had to pivot quickly. And I think I appreciate my colleagues being willing and open to that idea that we did. And so again, I think we do need to keep this open, and there will still be a disadvantage to all these businesses during phase 4, and until that's completed, we need to do what we can to try to make sure everybody survives this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Keith. Trustee Clavio, you want to make any comments?
You know, I always can. You know, I just, and for the most part, we haven't done that, but we need to make sure we're, you know, keeping the scope of this meeting to the scope of this meeting. I know the word permanent is coming up out of all of our mouths, including mine, but this meeting is not about the permanent solution. And I would agree with my colleagues that if we're going permanent, yes, we need to do the whole process, but this meeting is about the temporary extension of this. So I'm all in favor of it. I had lunch down there today. People are being responsible. I'm a little taken back by some of the survey results, because one of them that said they're absolutely opposed to this, the same person told me to my face that they love it and business has never been better. So I'm a little taken back by the fact that one person, they say, oh no, this is terrible, there's no parking on Ash. And then the next time when I'm in there shopping, they're, oh my gosh, we're doing incredible business. 3 businesses on Ash have told me that they stayed open till 8 o'clock at night one night, and they were fabulous because people are walking around. The waits for these restaurants are an hour and 45 minutes, and people are waiting around. So it means people are going into these stores. And I think we need to, so the short of it is, I am very much in favor of extending this. Clearly, I'll broach the topic, although I can't give too many details tonight. If Fall Fest were to happen, we have to gauge how we do the streets with Fall Fest if this is open during that period. But that's something that's administrative that can very easily be worked out between the two parties. That we don't need to bring that to a committee to do that. But the other part is, I think that we need to educate our residents. We need to help educate them that not just the restaurants down there need help. When you're waiting for an hour and a half, do walk around and look at the stores and actually know that everything is open down there. And not only down there, I mean, when you're over at, the north side of town, and you're waiting for a table at a particular Italian restaurant, there are stores next to that. So encourage people and encourage our restaurant owners to say, hey, there's a little bit of a wait here. The stores are open downtown. Why don't you take a look through them, and we'll page you when it's ready. So yeah, I am definitely in favor of an extension at this time.
Thanks, John. And Adam Borelli, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm joining you from a Costco parking lot on the north side somewhere. Trustee Clavio just stole my thunder. I thought the scope of this meeting was simply to extend the current practices through phase 4, whatever timeline that is. I don't know if we're just saying till the end of phase 4, till the end of September. I'm open to any of it. I think it would be a huge mistake to just cut things off on June 26th. It's worked out well. I think it's been the very well received by the public, the restaurants, the businesses. There's a few hiccups here and there, but I think in general it's been a great success, and I'm very glad that we did it. To Trustee Farina's point and others, a permanent closure of Kansas Street is definitely something I would like to discuss, but that is for a later time, and it should go through that full process. That's all I have, Mayor. Thanks,
Adam. I would like to make sure that we talk a little bit about the timing. It sounds like we're for extending both the temporary outdoor eating areas on the public street and the temporary eating areas on private property. They both go together. So if there's any difference on that, we want to hear it. But when does it end? And I guess I would suggest one date that would be simple enough is the Monday, if we're going to have Fall Fest, the Monday before Labor Day would probably be a logical time to end this practice. Mondays are slow days for restaurants anyway. They'd have their material and the village could have everything cleared off the streets by Tuesday or Wednesday, and other activities take place then for Fall Fest. If we don't have Fall Fest, then it seems like maybe Tuesday after Labor Day might be a good day, but I would be interested in opinions on that. Trustee Ogle.
Mayor, actually, Jeff or Rob might remember the date on here. We had leases for that outdoor space, the patio space originally. I think it would make sense to have those run along with those. Question with during Fall Fest, in the past, we've taken over Kansas Street for vendor tents on the one side, but the restaurants were able to seat everybody inside, and they had full capacity inside. So even in phase 4, unless this is opened up at that point, they will still be at restricted capacities and would need the outdoor seating. It's not an insurmountable challenge there, but it's something for us to be aware of. But as far as the date that we extend this to, I would like to see it probably run with the existing patio leases that we're putting out there.
If I'm not mistaken, and somebody might help me here, they go to October. I think it's the beginning of October sometime, but that's in writing somewhere.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. It is in October.
And I think, Trustee Ogle, you're suggesting that this configuration is compatible with Fall Fest and would be a good idea to keep it going if we have Fall Fest.
I think it'll be important. Again, people use the restaurants, and the restaurants will no longer be able to seat people to capacity inside as they have in the past. So we're going to need that space, and I think, as Trustee Clavio had mentioned, that could be worked out as far as the configuration, how we move people along in there. Okay,
Trustee Severia.
I've got dogs going crazy in the background. I'm in favor of that also. I think that September is, there's still a lot of good weather in September, and, I would be in favor of extending it through September.
Anyone else?
I would agree with that. September seems reasonable, and Keith, I hadn't really thought about the configuration, but it does seem possible that you might be able to maintain that outdoor space and shift some things around for Fall Fest if that would continue.
Trustee Borelli, any comment on the timing?
I would agree with that. End of September sounds good to me.
Okay, or whatever the contracts say for the outdoor dining in the downtown. We can go by that. Now, perhaps another issue that's related to all of this is rules. For instance, we say no outdoor entertainment, no live music, and it includes piped in music. I don't think any of us really worries about if somebody's got some soft music there that you really can't hear off the property. I don't think that's an issue, but it's difficult for the staff to enforce. There's either music or there isn't music. But any comments on that? Because there was a comment actually from Deborah that there was some music in the downtown, and we probably ought to decide if we're going to change any of these rules or enforce them. Trustee Severia.
I love music. However, I think that you've got a couple different restaurants, actually 3 right next to each other. And I think by limiting it to no music, it kind of simplifies it, right? Because otherwise, the enforcement, how loud it gets, that's hard to enforce. I'd love to have music out there, but then you could have 3 different restaurants competing for what they're playing and stuff. So it might be easier just to say no music.
And excuse me, but Trustee Farina, I don't know if you spoke up on the length of time. I don't know if you want to, but if you do, please.
I didn't. The only thing I thought about is how long will we be in phase 4? Fall Fest can only occur if we go to phase 5. So I think the state's going to dictate what the timeline is.
Okay. Trustee Petro.
So I think that's a good point with the music, especially competing music. It could get messy. I think where I have seen that outdoor area with multiple restaurants where there is music done well, it's more done from the village standpoint, right? Where it would be a consistent music that you would hear across the board. I think that was something we would need to consider if that was the case. And I don't think we are anywhere near, a place of having like a live entertainment or a one-off type of situation at this point, based on phase 4.
Sure.
Trustee Ogle.
Yeah, to Trustee Petro's point too, the competing music, but also that music creates an atmosphere. And we've said that we're really not looking to have beer gardens going or have that kind of atmosphere going. But also, and to Trustee Farina's point, just to clarify that, we are kind of following whatever the governor puts out there. If we go to phase 4 and we don't move to phase 5, either way, I think this temporary project for us will end in the end of September, October. If we go to phase 5 earlier than that, for some reason, that they free up all the restrictions, then we have to look at, well, do we continue, since the restaurants can now move back inside, do we want to continue to have things out on Kansas Street, which is a different discussion at this point. So as it's been, we kind of have to go day by day based on what the governor allows.
And Mr.
Yes, Administrator Pisha.
Mr. Mayor, just I think the point of clarification on the regular outdoor dining, I think they're allowed to go till November, and they have to have everything off the property by November. So I would think we probably want to set a little bit earlier of a date, just because of the fact that as you get past September, October is really iffy. And then you've got the street closed, then more times when you've got poor weather and you want to have it closed when nothing's really going on. So, a little bit different when the stuff's on the sidewalks and it's not impeding anything. It's just a question of whether you want to have that as the weather gets more iffy after September.
Well, let's see, what day of the week? October 5th is a Monday, or September 28th is a Monday. And a Monday seems like a logical time to end the practice. How about October 5th then, instead of, it's sometime in November apparently, Rob?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I don't think there was a specific date. They have it April through November, and that's why because it's with the buildings, they can keep it up longer. Go ahead, Jeff. I think you have something.
Yeah, I have the lease pulled up, and the language talks about being operated through the months of April through October, weather permitting. So it seems to be October inclusive.
Well, how about we pick October 5th? That's a Monday. Trustee Clavio.
I have no problem with the date. Like I said before, if other things are occurring down there, it adds to it and can be worked out administratively. Regarding the music though, are we making this rule for 3 restaurants, or are we making this rule for all of the businesses that are allowed to operate outside? Because take just by way of example, Dancing Marlin has their outside pergola that they have music in there every night before COVID-19 happened. Enrico's has speakers in his, what was his garden previously as well. So I just want to be very clear, if we do implement rules that say no music, are they no music on Kansas Street, or are they no music for any outdoor dining? It's real hard to pick on people and single them out, and government's supposed to be about, uniformly enforcing things. So I just want to be clear so that if we do have to enforce it, someone doesn't come back to us and say, hey, well, I was at this restaurant last night and they had music on. How come I can't have mine on?
Well, that'll certainly be sad.
Absolutely.
Trustee Severia.
So I think that's a great point, Trustee Clavio. For those restaurants that currently have music, do they have a permit for that, or is that just something that they're doing?
As I recall, we have an entertainment permit for anybody who has a liquor license. So if it's Looms, I'm not sure there's anything about a permit required. But we do have something when they have a liquor license. But the obvious issue is over at Dancing Marlin, the music isn't impacting anybody. And the same with many of the restaurants around town, whereas it does impact the other restaurants, and it impacts the ambiance. It impacts a lot in the downtown, even whether it's, I think that Plank Trail Tavern has some soft music. I don't think you can even hear it off the property. Doesn't bother me at all. But there has been some louder music in other establishments downtown, and we all know there have been mariachi players wandering around the streets of Frankfort before. So what's the right thing to do here is really the question. And there's certainly a temptation to look at it by, well, what's the nature of the music and how loud is it and who's doing it? But that's too hard to enforce. We just have to make a rule, and perhaps the right rule is in the H1 district, you can't have music. In the other places, you can have music, but somehow you have to say it has to be reasonable. I mean, they can't go out there with huge amplifiers and blasting the neighbors. It has to somehow not be offensive.
Mr. Mayor,
Perfect law. I could write these laws easily.
Does H1 cover just those 3 restaurants, or are there any other establishments that we might be concerned about in the H1?
It would be down at La Dolce Vita as H1 and Cup of Joe.
And the Wine Thief?
And definitely the Wine Thief is H1.
Bowling Alley is H1.
And
Plank Trail.
all of those are pretty congested areas.
Okay.
But there's no doubt that even at Cereso's in their tent, if they got a band out there or something, or they put out a lot of power and music, it would be offensive even to the people maybe filling their gas tank at BP. I think there's some sort of a reasonableness test in this. Perhaps, John, our chief of police, that gets towards disturbing the police or disturbing the peace if the music is just excessive.
Yes, there's some of that, but it gets into where you almost have to have a rule of a certain decibel level or something else, because what may be offensive to some is not offensive to others. And then there's also a First Amendment issue that comes up that depending on music, sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, even under disorderly conduct.
Oh, I hope we don't have to get into that. I'm inclined to say that there's no music in the H1 district at the outdoor dining. There can be music inside, or maybe it's any music that can be heard off the property. How's that? I mean, if you can't hear it off the property, then it's, what do we care what they're doing? It's the same thing if they have piped in music inside. Generally, that can't be heard off the property. And then in our other establishments, we don't say anything, and we'll deal with it if it becomes a problem, because hopefully it won't. Does that make sense? And another issue, we did say in our rules there was no entertainment, and I think most of us were thinking live music or music. We've had some other forms of entertainment proposed or even attempted, and we ought to perhaps discuss that a little bit. Specifically, what's it called? The cornhole game or bag game or whatever you want to call it. There's been an attempt at that at one of the establishments, and the proprietor thinks it's a great idea. And is that what we mean by entertainment? Do we want to allow that sort of activity or not? Trustee Severia.
I personally wouldn't consider that entertainment. I think of entertainment as a band or some kind of where you have somebody performing. And if they have room for that, I mean, I have nothing against that. I'm assuming it would be someplace like the bowling alley or Gracie's, but I can't see the restaurants doing that. But I don't see that as entertainment in the definition of entertainment.
Okay, Trustee Clavio.
I would concur with Trustee Savaria, especially since the only live sports any of us have been able to watch in the last 3 months is the cornhole tournament championships. So technically it's a sport, not entertainment. But I will say, to your point, there are a few establishments, not downtown, outside of town, that actually already have them up. And that's why I think the new establishment that wants them is asking, because they've seen them at the other establishments.
Outside of town.
In
right?
Frankfort, but outside of downtown.
Anyone else have any comments about?
Jameson's has them in the back 40.
Yes.
They have off of their patio, they have a smoking section, and then they have the cornhole games, 2 cornhole games back there. But I don't consider that entertainment.
Well, Administrator Pisha.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to err on the side of caution and say, while you can argue the fact that it's entertainment, I think the whole idea of what we originally created, this outdoor dining, was specifically for dining and not to create an entertainment environment. And I'm just concerned that, does it end at cornhole games or anything else? And again, I have to be the guy that say, what else is this going to lead to? Because as we found, that people will try to come up with other creative ideas to try to add to the ambiance. And while again, I think it's okay, but the point is that I think from an enforcement standpoint, it just becomes much more problematic for staff to decide which is allowed and which isn't allowed. So I'm not really a big fan of it. And even like with Jameson's, that they should be told that they shouldn't be doing that. But that's just my thoughts.
Chief, did you have a comment?
The only thing I was going to say too is we're having a conversation about the music being annoying, and I don't know if anybody's actually sat outside and listened to bags when you're just a little bit away and you hear thump, thump, thump all night long. It does become annoying at times, and when you have other people around there and residents, it may become something that does become an issue just from the noise alone.
Trustee Clavio.
You know, Administrator Pisha, you bring up a good point, and I kind of lost sight of walking around and patronizing some of these restaurants that this is supposed to be for dining. And I mean, I don't want to continually single out specific restaurants and seem like I'm attacking them, but Trails Edge has gone way beyond dining. I mean, they literally have a section of their outdoor street that is set up with high top tables and no chairs and standing room only for drinking. And it's not crowded. They're acting responsible. They're socially distanced, but you can see them, and they literally make an L in their area, which no one's eating at those tables. They're grabbing a drink prior to their table being ready, I believe.
Just a point of clarification, I had a conversation with Cosgroves today about that, and they are going to put chairs around those tables as well, because I told them that does not meet the standard or the spirit of what you guys had put in place. So I've already talked to them, and they're supposed to be correcting that.
Perfect, thank you.
Well, they'll put six chairs around those little tiny tables. I mean,
Either that or you'll be sitting down here, the table will be up here.
okay, so we're going to tell them to put stools or something out there. Well,
that is correct, Mr. Mayor. They said that they would address it, and they have been very open to if there's something that we need to adjust, that they have been adjusting at our recommendation. So again, if we said that we prefer to have regular tables out there and not the high tops, I'm guessing that they would make that adjustment. But they did, as I said, I did talk to them specifically, and they were going to add a couple of chairs around each of the high tops.
I guess the legitimate concern about the issue is that you can get a lot more people in the same square footage at high tops than you can at the tables. So it's a COVID-19 transmission issue as much as anything. They put out 6 high tops and they get 36 people in a very small area. Whereas if they have 6 4-foot diameter tables, they get much fewer people, and we have much less chance of transmitting the disease. That would seem the issue to me anyway, but I don't know. I'll listen to what people want to do. I kind of like the high tops anyway, but any other comments on these issues? Well, let's see if we have the concept that all of the outdoor dining could be extended to whatever date we said. I think the first
October
Monday
5th.
in October.
October 5th.
October 5th, that there would be no entertainment or no music in the H1 district, and that's explained to the places there because it's more congested. They're right next to both residential and other restaurants that are doing the same thing. Whereas at the other places in town, there can be a reasonable amount of music until it becomes a public nuisance and we have to call our police. How's that? What else? At the games, I think we're saying that the games, if they fit in the space, they can be there. I would guess that or did we say that? Did we say they can or they can't? They were saying they can't. No games. Better, let's be sure we're straight on that one. Let's everybody think again on, if you allow one game, I think you have to allow just about any game. So volleyball, miniature golf, cornhole. I think that's the official name of that game. Trustee Petro.
So I would agree. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I would agree. I don't necessarily see it as entertainment in an everyday situation, but this is just not everyday situation. The reason we are in phase 3, the reason we're moving to phase 4 and waiting for phase 5 is to have that distance, and anything that encourages people to get together, stand right, there and have competition, right? It's all about, that's more entertainment and having fun. It does fall in that same category at this time. And I would agree with Chief. We talk about the H1 not having the noise that might be a low decibel piped in. Something like bags can get very loud in a congested area.
Anyone else? Trustee Borelli, are you still there?
I am. Thanks for calling on me. Just going back a few, so October 5th, I was good with that date. Or if we go into phase 5 sooner, obviously we would, I believe, lift those, this expanded seating arrangement is temporary. So to Trustee Farina's concern about if we go into phase 5 sooner, are we still going to allow it? I think we would address it then. So I would, whatever comes sooner, I'm pretty certain it'll be October 5th. As far as the music, it seems like it's easier just not to have it in VH1. You know, I was eating at Francesca's a couple nights ago, and I mean, there's one big culprit, and it's Fat Rosie's. It's just always loud, and I don't know, they just can't contain themselves. I feel like Trail's Edge is doing it responsibly, Francesca's, the others, and it's, you know, I hate to punish everyone else because of one restaurant. If we are going to allow it, I would have some sort of, you know, you get one warning, and we come down there, we tell you to turn it down. If it happens again, then we're helping these businesses out, and we say, well, we're shutting you down for a week or for 3 days or whatever, and maybe that'll do it. But it's probably easier just not to have it at all. So it's unfortunate, but and then I would agree with, you know, as much as I'd love to play cornhole at Gracie's, it's probably not the best thing as far as, you know, addressing the concerns of COVID. Although as we do see the transmission and again, there's more consensus on how this is transmitted. It seems like it's not being transmitted by surfaces. It's by prolonged exposure to someone who has it in a tight space. And so if you're outside, I think you could have it safely, but I think it does sort of go against the spirit of why we're allowing this. So I would be okay with not allowing the games.
Great.
And I think that's it for now.
Thanks. Administrator Pisha.
Mr. Mayor, just want to make sure that the board still wants to entrust the staff that if we end up having issues, that make sure all of the permittees understand that this is temporary. It is, you know, you are authorizing it, and it is not something that is required to be, or that they're, you know, specifically granted to have other than by permission. So just want to make sure that if we have issues, that the businesses do understand that we, if it continues to be a problem, that we will potentially have to shut that specific area down. We don't want to have to do that, and it appears that most people are being pretty good about it. But at the same time, as we've seen that as the longer some of these things go, like I said, people end up being more creative, and then it can lead to problems that we have to address. And they have to know that, again, this isn't a right, it is a privilege to be able to have this space.
And I know, Rob, that our staff will start with a warning, tell people that here's the rule, you can't do that, or you can do this. And they will then have a progressive system of punishment before we take a rather drastic action that, and I think it's worked so far. We've had some issues. We've had a number of minor issues, and the restaurants have responded positively to what the staff has told them and corrected the issues.
Absolutely. Not looking to, I'm not saying we're going to hammer anybody. Certainly, like I said, I agree with you that the businesses have recognized the board's willingness to support them, and they have been very good about pivoting on things and stuff like that. So no, I'm not talking about the fact that we're looking to be heavy-handed, but just want to make sure that that we're clear that, again, that it is not a right, it is a privilege that this is going on, and that certainly we want voluntary compliance to make sure that we're not having problems. But as we see that, we just want to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand as well.
Do we want to discuss at all the aesthetics of what things look like in the downtown? Generally, to fix that sort of thing and do it right, it takes money. And so I'm not sure we really want to get into that much, but it's up to you. If you want to talk about, is there something simple we could do that doesn't cost a lot of money on a temporary basis? And the staff might weigh in on that too. Do we need all those barricades? Do we need all this stuff? Or Trustee Clavio?
You know, Mr. Mayor, if we go to the permanent nature, yes, definitely that is going to become a part of the discussion. I think, and I'm speaking personally for me right now, when those barriers first went up, it was gross, it was offensive, it was in your face. But it is what it is. It's temporary. It's intended, and we have to have a certain level of safety to be sure that we can do this. And safety and beautiful sometimes does not go hand in hand. In fact, most of the time it does not. So I, for one, am not an advocate of the village spending any tax dollars to do other than what's there based on the temporary nature of this.
Good. Trustee Severia?
I would agree. The first thing that went through my mind was the safety, and I think that we need those up for now until I don't think we're going to have any other solution that's going to provide safety for the patrons. So, you know, until we go with something permanent. So I think we need to leave those up for now.
Trustee Petro?
I would agree with that. You know, it's not our Frankfort standard because it hasn't gone through all the processes, and we all know that because it is a short-term solution to a problem that we're facing right now. But it did spark my memory. I think it was maybe it was Dowding or Chief Barica that shared those newer barriers that we had looked at some time, maybe about like 6 or 8 months ago, that weren't as heavy. And so I know we had brought those up for other events that we were considering, and they protected safety from different concerts or times that we were shutting the streets. And maybe that's just something that we do revisit now that we've had exposure to using them more.
Good suggestion, Trustee Petro, but those were expensive. They cost quite a bit of money to rent, and to rent them for the whole summer, we'd probably buy them, and then they're even more expensive. So
I couldn't remember all the details. I just remember aesthetically looking at them.
Yes, we looked into other ones, but you're looking at probably about $70,000 to be able to completely close all the streets that we would need to do. So
There's
yeah,
actually only for part of the
better
streets.
looking things that we can do for the future. And I appreciate what you're saying about the temporary nature of it, but the barriers and the signage that's up there right now are really required as a street closure like that. And that's why we even had to put the class 3 barricades, you know, the taller ones with extra rows, because when you close a street like that for protection, you're supposed to have those barriers. That's why we put them in front of the concrete ones as well. So again, I thank the board for recognizing that. And again, we know it doesn't look great, and it was just something to get it done quickly and on a temporary nature. And certainly if the discussion moves for permanency, we can come up with some better ideas.
well,
This is Adam.
Adam, go ahead.
No, I would just say obviously I wouldn't move the blocks, but if there's a way to, those big orange ugly, if there's some better replacement for those that the staff has that's cheap, I wouldn't mind seeing those switched out, but I'll live with them. But
yeah, again,
those are required by the state when you do that. Yeah.
Yep.
thanks, Chief. Okay, got it.
Yeah, won't that be a challenge if we want to do something permanently? We don't like those things, Chief. You got to figure out a different way.
Mr. Mayor, if you make a permanent closure, it's different because of the fact that you can let people know that the street is actually closed as a permanency as opposed to just a temporary closure.
Well, we need to redefine temporary or permanent. That's easy enough. Anything over 3 weeks is permanent. Well, probably not. Okay. I think we've had a consensus here as to what we want to do. And we should be clear that both for the seating on private property and the seating on Kansas Street, we would extend what we're doing till October 5th. There would be no entertainment, let's say no music in the H1 district, and there would be no entertainment, games and such, in the extended area. Maybe that's a good way to put it. That kind of leaves Jameson's open, John, that in the extended area, you can't have entertainment items, but in your regular area, maybe you can. That makes sense? And I don't know if you feel more comfortable with a motion on this issue, or the consensus is enough. It's basically giving staff direction from the elected officials is what we're doing. Trustee Clavio.
I would agree. I think we're giving them direction. I guess from a, procedural Nazi that I am, since we first made a decision in this manner in a straw poll, it probably might be helpful if we remain consistent and do it the same way for this decision as well, since it relates to the same topic.
Good. So what I just described is what we're planning on doing. And maybe people raise their hands if you're in favor of it. And if you're, how about you, Trustee Borelli?
I'm raising my hand.
Okay. And then if you're not in favor of it, raise your hand. Okay. So the consensus is clear.
And I just, Mayor Holland, I'm just not going to vote. All the questions, all the discussion we had really showcases the importance of why we should go through a committee process with our Plan Commission, our Historic Preservation Commission. If we're going to leave it open to October 5th, we can still go through that process and have change within the next month and have it look and feel and be safe to Frankfort standards. And I think we should do that. So I'm not going to vote because I do appreciate people's feedback and so forth, but I also want to showcase the importance of committee processes. This is now the second time the village board has kind of waved its own wand and created things within 58 minutes. And that's just, I think we can do better job policy making. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Well, that's very fair, Margaret. And I think this issue is going to be discussed thoroughly for the future. So that brings us to the part of our meeting called Other Business. Is there any other business for this committee? Trustee Farina.
Thank you, Mayor Holland. In the last few meetings, we've had some discussion on social media and the importance of the village presence on there, which I appreciate. And after the year we've been having so far, we're halfway there. There's been some crisis communications issues I think we needed to be considerate about. And I'm wondering if, and this is just a suggestion, is there an opportunity for staff to research some local firms, Chicago's home to many firms that assist local governments with a communication strategy and objectives and processes, and perhaps put together just a memo regarding some of these firms and what they have to offer for us to consider hiring a firm from now, maybe through the end of the year, which would help us in a number of capacities. One, branding, marketing, talking points, crisis communication, social media. And that would give us an opportunity to begin discussions on what that may look like. And then the new year, if we're interested, we can hire a firm to assist us and continue down that path or not. We just say this isn't going to work. But just something to consider as we're moving forward in this tumultuous time of 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Farina. And I would point out that we have hired a firm that is working on some of these issues. So Assistant Village Administrator Cook is heading up that project. And so that process is partially underway. I agree, we could do a lot more in that area. Trustee Clavio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have 2 things, and they're kind of a segue from the discussion we're having. One is I wanted to offer a big attaboy to a number of our restaurateurs in town, because they have truly taken advantage of this down period. And some of them have borderline gotten down to the point where they've gutted, not to the studs, but gutted their dining rooms and are refreshing them quite a bit. So That's going to bode very well for Frankfort when we do reopen and get back to some sense of normalcy, because people are going to be excited about dining, and then they're going to have a whole new experience. So attaboy to at least 4 of our restaurants that I have seen who are in that process, which is fantastic. The second point I had was a question that I was actually asked yesterday, and I don't know the answer to this. Did we suspend the Parmesan's liquor license? Because they are closed.
Good point. I don't believe so.
Should we do that is my question.
Yes.
I mean, we can't do it here. We
I
have
don't
to
know
do
what
it.
it takes to do that, but I do think there's a clause somewhere in the rules that says if you're closed for a certain period of time, it may say the license automatically rescinds, but does anybody know, Administrator Pisha?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there is a clause in there that says that if a business is closed, I don't have the duration, I don't have that ordinance in front of me, but there is a caveat in our liquor ordinance that does automatically, if your business is not in operation for an extended period, the license is rescinded.
Well, let's be sure to take a look at that and bring it to the board if we need to take some formal action. Jeff, you have something on that?
Yes, the provision is in the liquor code, and it talks about if a business closes or otherwise ceases doing business or selling alcohol, that the liquor license issued shall automatically terminate and become null and void, and the number of available liquor license authorized in that particular class is automatically reduced by 1. So that's codified in the liquor code currently.
Perfect.
But as a matter of cleanup, it's certainly an item that we should bring to the board's attention.
Yeah, my guess is if we ask certain employees how many liquor licenses there are, they're going to be off by 1. And we do want to get that corrected on all of our records. And there probably should be some statement, at least saying that liquor license is gone. Anyway, take a look at that and be sure we're doing the right thing. Thanks.
Thank you. That's all I have.
A good point about the investments being made in the restaurants, John. It is exciting in this time of extreme problems for businesses. Here we have businesses in our town that are investing and spending money, and it's wonderful to see. Any other business? Very well. Any public comments, Rob? We had a number of them and you went over them before.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, actually the surveys just came in as part of something separate, but Mr. Hardy's came in under the public comment in the website. So that was again, and he stated he is support of maintaining or keeping the closures while we're in the current phases of the Restore Illinois. He likes the outdoor seating.
Great. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Night.
Everyone have a happy
Bye.
Friday.